Did you know your body burns fat most efficiently in the first few hours after you wake up? Most people accidentally shut that system off with their first bite of food. That's because your first meal of the day tells your body one of two things: burn fat for energy or store the food you eat as fat. I've worked with tens of thousands of people trying to lose stubborn belly fat, and one of the fastest breakthroughs that we see is when we fix the first meal of the day. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 10 best breakfast foods that can actively train your body to burn belly fat. What each one does inside your body and how to use them correctly so that you don't accidentally cancel out the fat loss benefits. And at the end, I'll share my personal shortcut, what I use on mornings when I don't even want to eat, but still want my metabolism working for me. Before we get started, if you want actual recipes using the same foods that I'm about to show you, I put together a free breakfast guide. It shows you exactly how to combine these into a balanced fat burning meal. And I'll include a link to them in the description below, so make sure and grab your free copy. So to start, number one, we want to fix one of the biggest hidden fat loss bottlenecks most people don't even realize they have: a sluggish liver. And most people think belly fat is just about calories. But when your liver is the organ that decides whether fat gets burned or stored, and if fat starts building up inside the liver itself, everything slows down, especially around your midsection. Now, the problem is most adults over 50 have some degree of fatty liver and they don't even know it. There's no pain, there's no obvious warning signs. You just start gaining fat and can't figure out why. However, there's a breakfast food that actually directly supports the liver's ability to clear fat, and that food is eggs. Egg yolks are one of the richest natural sources of the nutrient called choline. Choline helps your liver package fat and move it out so it can be burned. Without enough choline, fat builds up in the liver, and fat loss becomes harder everywhere else. One large egg yolk contains about 147 milligrams of choline. 2 to 3 whole eggs gets you close to half of your daily requirement. And once your liver has enough, it can process and export fat more efficiently. But eggs don't just support the liver. They're also rich in an amino acid called leucine. Leucine is the trigger that flips on muscle protein synthesis, the process that tells your body to maintain and build muscle. And muscle is what keeps your metabolism higher when you're at rest. The more muscle you preserve, the more calories you burn even when you're not moving. In fact, research has shown that whole eggs stimulate about 40% greater muscle building activity than egg whites alone, even when protein intake is the same. That surprised researchers because it means something in the yolk, the fats, the vitamins, the micronutrients amplify the signal. So when people throw away the yolk because they're afraid of the cholesterol, they're throwing away the most powerful part. Speaking of cholesterol, here's something most people don't realize. About 75 to 80% of the cholesterol in your bloodstream is produced by your own liver. It's not coming from eggs or anything that you eat. So don't let outdated cholesterol fear stop you from eating one of the most effective fat-burning breakfast foods available. And if you want to start using eggs for breakfast, aim for 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning. That's what I ideally do. I just cook mine over hard, add a little salt, add a little pepper. Ideally, you want them to be organic and pasture raised, but cook them, scramble them, poach them, boil them, however you'd like. You could even, drizzle over a little olive oil if you want some extra fat, or grass-fed butter is what I usually will cook the over hard eggs in for a really good flavor and no unhealthy fats. You get actual healthy fats at the same time as the eggs. You could pair them with a vegetable. You could go sauteed spinach. You could slice up a little bit of avocado, or if you want some sprouted grain toast for a little bit extra fiber, that would be another good side. We'll talk about that more in a minute. It's one of the most versatile and powerful fat foods that you can eat first thing in the morning. Eggs, number one. Let's go to number two. Let's fix a mistake that makes a lot of people hungry again by 10 a.m. You eat breakfast, you feel good for an hour, and then your stomach starts grumbling again a couple hours later. By mid-morning, you're reaching for a granola bar or a snack or a soda or something sweet. That's because the protein you ate digested way too fast. And when that happens, your body and amino acids rise quickly, and then they fall quickly. And when they fall, hunger hormones start to climb back up. That's where Greek yogurt could be a game changer for this. Not the sugary fruit on the bottom full of sugar kind, but plain cultured full-fat Greek yogurt. The key difference is the type of protein that it contains. Greek yogurt is rich in casein. Now, some people are a little bit sensitive to it, but casein is slow digesting as a protein. When it hits your stomach, it forms gel-like thickness. That gel slows down how quickly food leaves your stomach, which means nutrients are released gradually into your bloodstream for hours. And that steady release helps keep hunger hormones lower for a lot longer into the day. Here's the deep relation layer most people miss. High-quality Greek yogurt also contains live probiotic cultures, and your gut bacteria influence how your body handles calories. Certain strands of good bacteria even increase GLP-1, one of your main fullness hormones. It's the same hormone that's targeted by popular weight loss drugs like Ozempic. So as a result, in large studies involving twins who ate different foods, people who regularly consumed yogurt with cultures had lower levels of visceral fat. The deep belly fat that surrounds your organs. Same genetics, same upbringing, but because of what they ate, the environment in their gut was different, resulting in different fat distribution. And this is why flavored yogurts don't help, because many of them contain 20 grams or more of added sugar. You've really got to watch the label, because that sugar spikes insulin, which tells your body to prioritize burning sugar over burning fat. And then when blood sugar drops, hunger comes back really quickly. So if you want to start eating Greek yogurt for breakfast, I recommend 1 cup of plain, unsweetened, full-fat yogurt, and check the label for live and active cultures to make sure that you're getting the gut benefits. You can then add your own toppings for better flavor without spiking insulin. Berries, chia seeds, a little cinnamon, all of these work with fat loss rather than against it. And together with Greek yogurt, they can deliver a satisfying breakfast that keeps you full for hours. For number 3, let's move to something that seems counterintuitive. A high-fat food that actually tells your muscles to burn more fat. For years, people were told that if you want to lose fat, you need to avoid fat. So when they see something like an avocado on a fat loss list, it seems and it feels wrong. Too many calories, too much fat. It must slow things down. But not all fats behave the same way inside of your body. Avocado is loaded with a specific type of fat called oleic acid. Oleic acid is a monounsaturated fat, and it does something very different than other saturated fats that you might find that could show up in a pastry or in a processed breakfast sandwich. Inside your muscle cells, oleic acid helps turn on genes that are responsible for burning fat for energy. So instead of just sitting in your bloodstream, that fat gets used. Now, saturated fats don't activate the same pathway, but oleic acid does. It's a big difference. But there's also another layer here. When researchers replaced carbohydrates at breakfast, your donuts and muffins and toasts and cereals, and you replaced it with a whole avocado, participants reported significantly greater fullness for up to 6 hours after, because it increases your fullness hormones. That means fewer cravings later, and avocado also improves insulin sensitivity. That means your cells respond more effectively to insulin, so less of it is required to manage your blood sugar. And when insulin stays low and steadier, the body has an easier time accessing stored fat. So if you want to start including an avocado in your breakfast, I recommend trying a half to a whole avocado. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can slice it, have it next to your eggs, put it on some sprouted grain toast, blend one into a smoothie, or just eat it straight up with some salt and pepper. That's my favorite. You don't need a giant portion. You just need enough to send the right signal, because when your muscles are being told to oxidize fat and your hunger hormones are stable, you're not fighting your metabolism anymore. All right, let's go to number 4 and talk about a carbohydrate that works very differently than the ones most people are used to, but it can be really abused if you don't do it right because it's so popular. Now, most carbohydrates get digested really quickly. They break down into glucose. Glucose raises blood sugar. Insulin rises to move that sugar into your cells. And like we just discussed, when insulin's elevated, fat burning slows down. That's the typical pattern. But certain carbohydrates don't fully digest in your small intestine. They pass through intact. And that can change everything. I'm talking about steel-cut or old-fashioned rolled oats. Now, these don't behave the same way in your body as other breakfast carbohydrates do, like a cereal or some kind of grain that may even have added oats. And it's because they contain a special type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. I love beta-glucan. Beta-glucan absorbs water and forms a thick gel in your digestive tract. And that gel slows down food leaving your stomach, which causes blood sugar to rise more gradually. And as a result, insulin stays more stable. Research shows that beta-glucan can also increase GLP-1, the Ozempic hormone that we just talked about. But there's an even more powerful layer most people don't know about. When you cook oats and then cool them, like in overnight oats, some of the starch reorganizes into something called resistant starch. Resistant starch resists digestion. So instead of becoming glucose, it travels to your colon, where your gut bacteria help activate something called AMPK. AMPK is the same cellular energy switch that your body turns on during exercise and during fasting. And when AMPK is activated, your body increases fat burning and improves insulin sensitivity. So the way you prepare the oats changes their power to burn fat. Instant oatmeal doesn't do this. It's often pre-processed, contains a lot of added sugars and a lot of glyphosate and pesticides and other chemicals that come with it. So don't make the mistake of buying the wrong kind. All most people need for breakfast is about a half a cup of dry, rolled, or steel-cut oats. I think it's still very important we get non-genetically modified oats, organic, when you can. If you want to soak them, use about a half a cup of rolled oats. Add enough liquid to fully cover them, usually about a half to 3/4 of a cup. You can use water, you can use unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk, or you could even try some plain Greek yogurt. Now that's a good start. I usually stir in some of my collagen plus multivitamin. One of them is vanilla flavored, one is strawberry flavored, one is chocolate flavored. So you can really make the oats taste good. It gives you some monk fruit, a bunch of nutrients, extra protein to feel more full, but it makes them taste incredible. So you stir them, you cover it, and then you just refrigerate it overnight. And in the morning, you can eat them cold, or you can warm them up if you wanted to. And just like with Greek yogurt, you can add whatever toppings you want. Some chia seeds, some berries, some cinnamon, or even a little bit more of that clean protein powder. Just make sure that whatever you add doesn't spike insulin and store fat instead of burning it. That's why I like having that collagen powder. And in that guide, we'll give you Nurse Livingood, my wife's overnight oat recipe. It's delicious. Now let's move from controlling blood sugar to number 5, to actually changing the behavior of your fat cells themselves. Most people think fat cells are just storage units. They fill up, they shrink, end of story. But your body has different types of fat. White fat is the kind most people think of, and it primarily stores energy. But then there's another kind of fat called brown fat, and that actually burns energy to produce heat. And as we age, the amount of active brown fat tends to decline, which makes it easier to store calories and harder to burn them. But there's a breakfast food you can include that actually nudges your fat cells to use more energy instead of simply holding onto it. And that food is berries. Blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries. In addition, berries also contain natural plant compounds called anthocyanins, the compound that gives them their deep red and purple colors. Anthocyanins are powerful antioxidants, and that means they help protect your cells from damage. But what makes them especially interesting for fat loss is what happens over time. When consumed regularly, anthocyanin-rich foods are associated with less weight gain, and in many cases, actually fat loss compared to people who don't eat them, which can't be said about the majority of fruits. In one large study of 2,734 identical female twins, the twins who consumed the most anthocyanins had a 3 to 9% drop in body fat, including less belly fat. And of all the berries studied, blueberries were shown to have the strongest effect. Now, just because berries are good for you and help with fat loss doesn't mean every product that contains fruit delivers the same results. A great example is fruit juice. A lot of people think fruit juice is a healthy option for breakfast, but when you drink a glass of juice like orange juice, you're getting the sugar of 2 to 3 oranges without the fiber that normally slows down that sugar. Not to mention that most juices are made from fruit that has way more sugar than berries. And fruit juice isn't the only problematic breakfast food. You run into a similar issue with flavored yogurts that advertise real fruit. It sounds healthy, but when you flip the container over, you'll often find added sugars that cancel out the benefit. So if you're going to use berries for breakfast, aim for about 1 cup of whole berries. Fresh or frozen, both work. You can add them to Greek yogurt. You can put them and stir them into your oats. You can blend them into a smoothie. You can just eat them straight up. And at about $3 to $5 per frozen bag, they're one of the most cost-effective ways to support fat loss at breakfast. And unlike most fruits, they're working with your metabolism instead of against it. Okay, number 6 is next, and let's tackle something that blocks fat loss in a completely different way. And this comes from getting hungry again too soon. You eat breakfast, you feel satisfied, and then an hour or 2 later, you're thinking about food again because it's digested way too quickly. That's where chia seeds come in. Chia seeds absorb liquid, and when they do, do, they expand. Once they make it to your stomach, they take up space. And that physical space signals fullness, which means you feel satisfied much longer without adding many extra calories. In one study, just 1 tablespoon of chia seeds added to yogurt reduced calorie intake at the next meal by nearly 25%. Just 1 tablespoon is all it took. That's not all though. When chia seeds absorb liquid and expand, they form into a gel. If you've ever dumped some into a glass of water, you'll see what I mean after about 15 minutes. That gel slows down digestion, causing food to move more gradually through the system. That slower digestion means steadier energy and fewer sharp spikes and crashes. So you're less likely to start searching for a snack mid-morning. If you want to use chia for breakfast, aim for 1 to 2 tablespoons. You can go as high as 3, but any more than that can cause you digestive issues, so just be warned. And you can stir them into Greek yogurt. You could add them to the overnight oats. You can blend them into a smoothie. You can make a chia seed pudding recipe, which is my favorite, by mixing 2 tablespoons with a half a cup of your favorite milk, letting them sit overnight. And again, to make them taste good, just like with the oats, add in my collagen plus multivitamin vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate. You're getting a whole bunch of extra nutrients and delicious flavor with it. If you're interested, I'll include a link to my chia seed pudding recipe in that guide in the description below. And just as a note, you probably don't want to eat them dry, like straight off the spoon. They can really get kind of like lodged in your throat or your teeth, and a little bit of a safety risk. So instead, just let them soak for at least 10 to 15 minutes. You can put them in water and drink them that way, chia seed water, or eat them mixed into foods. Let them form that gel and you'll get more benefit out of it and more texture. They're inexpensive, they're shelf stable, and they're one of the simplest appetite control tools that you can keep in your kitchen. Number 7, let's talk about something most people think they have to completely give up if they want to lose belly fat, and that's bread. Okay, for a lot of people, bread feels like the enemy. And if we're talking about white bread or muffins or bagels from the coffee shop, then you're not wrong. But most of those digest so quickly. Your blood sugar rises fast after eating them, fat burning shuts off, but not all bread behaves the same way. Now, I think it's a good idea if you are really trying to lose weight and make strides that you're probably not focusing on bread, but sprouted grain bread is fundamentally different. Sprouted bread is made from grains that have begun to germinate. That's a process that changes the structure of the grain. Some of the starch is broken down, the protein becomes more available, and fiber becomes easier to digest. And as a result, it doesn't hit your bloodstream the same way that regular bread does. In one clinical study, research compared different kinds of bread, and sprouted bread produced the lowest blood sugar response of all the breads. Lower than white bread, lower than multigrain, lower than sourdough, and that held true even when the breads had the same amount of carbohydrates, which means it isn't just about fewer carbs, it's actually processed differently in the body. That's important because the goal isn't to eliminate every carbohydrate, it's to choose the ones that don't work against you. Sprouted bread also gives you more protein and fiber per slice than a standard bread would. One slice of Ezekiel bread, sprouted bread, has about 80 calories, 5 grams of protein, and 3 grams of fiber. Compare that to a plain bagel, which has 250 to 300 calories, 50 grams of fast digesting carbs, and almost no fiber and very little protein. They're in the same food category, but have completely different outcomes. And here's something else you probably didn't know. Freezing bread and then toasting it reduces the blood sugar response even further. In one study, freezing and toasting reduced the blood sugar rise by up to 39% compared to just fresh bread. Sprouted bread is always sold frozen, so when you toast it straight from the freezer, you're automatically getting that benefit. No extra costs, no extra effort, just toast it. Now, if you want to include sprouted bread in your breakfast, here's what you could do. Just stick to one slice, toast it from frozen, and always pair it with protein or a healthy fat. You can put eggs on top of it, avocado, you could use a nut butter, you could add some salmon, but bread should be the vehicle, not the entire meal. Kind of be a side piece or an add-on. I wouldn't recommend just eating it alone. Even sprouted bread will raise blood sugar much more if it's eaten by itself. So pairing it slows digestion and keeps energy more steady. You don't have to eliminate bread completely to lose fat. It is one thing you could do for a period of time, but you can start adding it back in. You just have to stop choosing the kind that works against you. Next up, let's look at something you can use before your main breakfast. breakfast, especially if you tend to sit down already hungry. When you start a meal too hungry, you eat faster, you take bigger bites, and you eat more than you planned. And the meal hits your system harder. So one simple way to take the edge off of that hunger is a half a grapefruit about 20 to 30 minutes before breakfast. I did this at my grandparents' house growing up. Every breakfast started with a grapefruit first, where we cut it in half and we had to dig it out with a grapefruit spoon. If you never dug out a grapefruit, you got to try it. It was really fun as a kid. And then we squeeze the juice and drink the juice at the end. And then we would have breakfast. I don't think my grandparents understood the science behind it, but that was a great routine for them. So this is not a second breakfast. It's just a half a grapefruit. It works because grapefruit is mostly water and fiber. And that alone can reduce how much you eat at the meal that follows. But grapefruit does more than just fill space. It also contains a natural compound called naringenin. Naringenin has been studied for how it affects the metabolism. Researchers have found that it can help your liver handle sugar more efficient, and it may slightly increase the number of calories that your body is able to burn at rest. Some studies also show that it encourages your body to burn small amounts of energy as heat instead of storing it. And as a result, in clinical trials, people who consumed grapefruit before meals lost 3 to 4 pounds over 12 weeks without making any other major diet changes. Participants also showed lower insulin levels after meals. So you already know why that's important, as we previously discussed. Lower post-meal insulin makes it easier for your body to access stored fat later. Now here's a pro tip if you're going to eat grapefruit. When you do, don't scrape off all the white skin around it. That slightly bitter white layer contains a concentrated amount of the beneficial compounds. That's where a bunch of the metabolic support lives. Used correctly, half a grapefruit can help reduce portion size, blunt the meal response, and gently support fat burning. It's not required, but for someone who struggles with appetite control at breakfast, it can be a very helpful tool. Just keep in mind that grapefruit is powerful, so powerful that it can interfere with certain medications, especially statins and some blood pressure drugs. So if you're taking prescription medication, just check with your doctor first before using it as a daily habit. Let's go to number 9, but let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you're not physically hungry, but you still want something sweet or salty or crunchy? It's that kind of hunger that isn't coming from your stomach, it's coming from your brain. Researchers call it hedonic hunger. That's when you have a craving that has nothing to do with needing calories. And it's why so many people end up snacking by 10:30. Now, here's what's fascinating. There's a compound in leafy greens that directly reduces that type of hunger. It's called thylakoids. Thylakoids are structures inside green leaves, and when you consume enough of them, they help delay how quickly you break down fat. And when that partially digested fat reaches the lower intestines, it triggers hormonal signals that reduce cravings, not just appetite. In a 3-month study, women who consumed spinach extract containing thylakoids experienced up to 95% reduction in junk food cravings. 95%. They also lost significantly more weight than the control group. Now, participants reported that they simply didn't want snacks between meals. No extra willpower necessary. But that's not all, though. 1 cup of raw spinach, for example, contains about 7 calories. That means you can eat 2 large handfuls in a smoothie and barely change the caloric load, but your stomach stretch receptors will still be activated by it. So you physically feel more full with virtually no impact on blood sugar. And for adults over 50, there's another layer. Leafy greens contain natural nitrates, which help improve blood flow and muscle efficiency. These aren't the same as the synthetic nitrates found in processed meats, right? These are naturally occurring ones, and your body processes them differently. In older adults, a nitrate dose similar to what you're getting from about a cup of leafy greens improved muscle power within hours. The improvement was large enough that researchers actually compared it to the typical gap seen between younger and older adults. This is part of the reason why one of my favorite breakfast hacks is greens and collagen smoothie. Just add a handful of your favorite green into there. It not only helps you lose fat and stay full, but it can also support muscle performance for the rest of the day. So here's how to make it. Take a large handful or 2 of spinach or kale or collard greens, half to 1 cup of berries, right? I try to avoid the bananas or other high glycemic fruits to keep sugars low. And then I add a a scoop of my grass-fed collagen protein, which is already sweetened with monk fruit, which won't spike insulin like sugar does. And I blend it up with some ice and my favorite nut milk. It's a very simple go-to. I'll include a link to some of those in the description for those recipes below for anyone interested. Now, the collagen also supports joints, supports the gut lining, not to mention it's a much smaller insulin hit than many whey proteins because of the lack of lactose in it. And I try to add in some healthy fats if you can. Like I said, your favorite nut milk, an unsweetened coconut, an unsweetened almond, a tablespoon of coconut oil. Try to avoid any sweetened milks. Try to avoid any flavored creamers or low-fat substitutes that oftentimes contain seed oils. Just blend everything together and breakfast is served. It'll keep you full all morning and you won't even taste the grains. Which brings us to finally number 10. Speaking of drinking something for breakfast, let's talk about the one thing almost everyone already has in their hand, coffee. Now, before you assume this is either good or bad, it depends entirely on how you use it. Black coffee on its own actually supports fat burning. Caffeine signals your nervous system to release stored fat into your bloodstream. That's called fat mobilization. If you move your body, stay active, or even just maintain a slight caloric deficit, that released fat can be used for energy. Coffee also increases your metabolic rate for a few hours after drinking it. That's part of the reason people feel more alert and warmer after they have a cup. But here's where most people accidentally cancel out the benefit. They turn coffee into dessert by adding flavored syrups, sugar, or sweetened creamers. Those spike blood sugar and shut down fat burning. So if you're going to use coffee as a tool, keep it black or just add a splash of unsweetened milk if needed. However, if you're not feeling like eating, you can actually upgrade it even further and replace breakfast entirely, which brings me back to what I teased at the beginning. I mentioned there's a shortcut that I use on mornings when I don't want to sit down and eat. Here it is. Instead of a full meal, I create what I like to call coffee. Organic coffee with moringa, a tablespoon of grass-fed butter, a tablespoon of coconut oil, and a scoop of my collagen protein. Then I blend it until it's creamy, drink it down, and get on with my day. The fats provide steady energy without spiking blood sugar. The collagen gives your body amino acids to protect muscle. And when I use my collagen plus multivitamin version, I've also taken in my multivitamin for the day. And because there's no sugar, your insulin response stays low and stays stable. And it's not the same as a full meal, but it bridges the gap nicely. And it's a great option when you're in a hurry and not feeling particularly hungry. It also keeps your body in a fat-burning state longer than a typical carb-heavy breakfast ever would. Now, here's the part most people miss. You can eat eggs, Greek yogurt, avocado, oats, berries, all of it. But if you eat at the wrong time, if you don't hit the right protein target, if you pair these foods incorrectly, you can still stall fat loss first thing in the morning because your choice of food is just one piece of the puzzle. There are 5 additional rules that determine whether your body stays in fat burning mode after breakfast, and most people break at least one of them every single day. So if you really want to make sure that your breakfast is helping you burn belly fat, watch my other video, 5 breakfast rules to burn belly fat every morning. And in it, I'll show you the non-negotiable rules that control how your body burns fat for the rest of the day and the subtle mistake that can cancel out the benefits of even the best food. So I will include a link to that video here. Click to watch it next, and I'll see you there.